Hello and welcome to Granada Reports, live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello, here's just some of what's on the programme tonight.
More than 3 decades later, compensations to be paid to hundreds of people because of the cover-up over the Hillsborough disaster.
For the sister of Stephen, who died that day, it's an empty gesture from police who wanted Liverpool fans to take the blame.
If the apology had been made the day after the disaster, then I think that there would have been a lot more forgiveness. But to put the families through what they've put us through for the past 33 years is a disgrace.
We'll hear from the man whose investigations into altered police statements led to the reopening of the Hillsborough case.
Also tonight, a problem of parking, how 999 crews say thoughtless motorists are putting lives at risk in the Lake District.
The robotic arm that could mean hope and independence to Adam, but he needs to raise thousands of pounds first.
They're called Loathe, but we think you'll love them. Meet the latest up-and-coming band, courtesy of Granada Introducing.
And today's weather was awesome across the northwest, but as we head into the weekend, I'll have bees, buddleias, more of your photos, and of course the full forecast a little later on.
All that coming up, but first, it's come more than 3 decades too late. 2 police forces are to pay compensation to more than 600 survivors and families for the cover-up which followed the Hillsborough disaster in 1989.
96 Liverpool football fans were killed in a crush on the terraces during an FA Cup semi-final. Only one person's ever been convicted for a health and safety offence. Last week, the trial of 3 men accused of perverting the course of justice over the disaster collapsed.
One campaigner whose brother was killed at Hillsborough said today's announcement would never make up for all the years when the fans were blamed for what happened. Our correspondent Hannah Miller has more.
As they remember the 96 who died, for many the trauma lives on. As the tragedy of Hillsborough passes from generation to generation, survivors and families will now receive compensation, along with support for counselling that many continue to need. 17-year-old Stephen Robinson was among those who lost their lives that day.
If the apology had been made the day after the disaster, then I think that there would have been a lot more forgiveness. But to put the families through what they've put us through for the past 33 years is a disgrace.
Today, South Yorkshire Police offered an unreserved apology for the serious errors and mistakes made on the day and in subsequent investigations. In a statement, they said the force's subsequent failings also caused huge distress, suffering and pain, both to the victims and their families. This is something South Yorkshire Police profoundly regrets. We know these settlements can never make up for what they have lost and suffered. Behind every single one of these 601 claims is a personal story. A survivor, a mum, dad, brother, sister, who spent the past 32 years trying to fight the lies that were told about their relatives. It's gone on for so long that some of those who received compensation have already passed away. No individual will ever be held responsible for what happened on that day. A trial of 2 former South Yorkshire police officers and the force's ex-lawyer was thrown out. As recently as last week, their lawyers were publicly claiming there never was a cover-up.
The judgment today finally clears their names and brings to an end the myth of the Hillsborough cover-up once and for all.
The solicitor, who represented more than 200 families, says this may be the closest they get to justice.
I think it's important to say that there hasn't been an admission of liability by either South Yorkshire or West Midlands Police. Obviously, as you look at it from the outside, one would say, well, they wouldn't pay compensation to these people if they didn't think there was something wrong. So the civil process hopefully has allowed some measure of justice to be seen to be done.
Their calls for a Hillsborough law continue to place a legal duty on public institutions to tell the truth. The fact it could be suppressed for so long continues to provide cause to reflect. Hannah Miller, ITV News, Liverpool.
Well, a short time ago, I spoke to Professor Phil Scraton. His investigations into the altering of police statements after Hillsborough led to the setting up of the Hillsborough Independent Panel in 2009. I started by asking how he feels about lawyers for those acquitted last week, again questioning Liverpool fans' behaviour, even after lawyers for the police had agreed their failings and compensation.
I've made a formal complaint to the Bar Standards Committee about their behaviour, a 6-page complaint, in fact, which demonstrates very clearly that what the lawyer in particular, the barrister in particular, for the solicitor who'd been charged, said was completely not only false, but it was mischievous, because he repeated the tropes that had been stated in the week after the disaster, that it was hooliganism, violence, drunkenness, and ticketlessness that caused the deaths.
South Yorkshire Police has apologised and acknowledged its failings on the day of the match and subsequent investigation. So many people will now wonder why no one has been criminally convicted. Is it because of the difference between civil claims like this and the proof needed for a criminal case?
The problem is that the standard of proof against individuals who committed individual acts that could have led to those deaths is entirely different to that generic finding of institutional failure. So although the inquest found institutional failure, and although in all other forums institutional failure has been demonstrated, that was not a finding against an individual. And an individual who is culpable, you have to be able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that their responsibility led directly to the deaths.
Is it enough after 32 years of suffering?
I would want to be very clear that in my knowledge of so many families and so many different instances, they never seek compensation just for the funds. That's irrelevant to them. They see it as a court and a settlement of justice. And that is really the most significant issue to state. And I think that sometimes the public opinion will say, why are they still pursuing it? Why are they still going on? They're not pursuing it because they want funds or money. They're pursuing it because they're looking for justice, justice to which we have known they have been entitled for so many years. That is why the settlement has been so important, because it states, in quick terms, never again should this happen.
And much of that truth, Phil Scraton, is down to your hard work. We thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to speak.
Two other stories making the headlines tonight, and latest figures show the top 10 areas with the highest rates of COVID infection are all in the northwest. Blackburn with Darwen still has the highest number of new cases, 661 in the last week, and a rate of 441 per 100,000 people. Neighbouring Hyndburn now has the fastest rising rate in the country, 171 new cases and a rate of 211 per 100,000 people.
Manchester Airport's preparing for a surge in people returning from Portugal after the government announced it was removing the country from the green list. From Tuesday, anyone in Portugal will need to quarantine for 10 days on return. No additional countries have been classed as green. The airport's boss says the government's traffic light system isn't working and may cost jobs.
As an industry, we've already lost hundreds of thousands of jobs. So here at Manchester Airport, we've lost a significant number. So it's really important that we work with governments to get this green list fit for purpose and to start international travel, which will be protecting jobs in the industry, but also it's essential for the local economies.
Next, firefighters in the Lake District are asking day trippers and holiday makers to think about where they park their cars after being prevented from reaching emergencies by bad parking.
And in some cases, the parking isn't just bad, it's illegal. Car parks have been full, with vehicles often parked down both sides of nearby streets. Our South Lakes reporter Fiona Marley-Patterson has the story.
10.5 metres long, 2.5 metres wide, 12 tonnes. Trying to navigate this as quickly as possible to save a life. These cars here are legally parked, but there are scenes like this across Cumbria at the moment where they're illegally parked. Twice in the last week, crews couldn't get to an emergency.
You know, it needs 10 feet to go through, and people aren't allowing that space, especially on the minor roads out in our rural areas where fire appliances need to get to emergency calls and they physically can't get through the gap. So once one person parks irresponsibly, it's like a domino effect and everyone else parks behind that one person.
Every time we come across what we call a tight area or a tight place to get through, we have to dismount the vehicle and get people out to do what we call a low-speed manoeuvre. Obviously that involves people guiding the driver through left and right, sometimes someone at the rear as well if you have to back up and turn around. So every time we do that, we're slowing our progress down. Also, if we do happen to catch a car that's creating the tight environment, we have to stop. Accident reports, paperwork, photographs, and we don't actually continue to the incident. We have to mobilise another pump to get to that incident of an emergency.
We've had a time where we've been driving down a small narrow street and had cars parked on either side of the road, so we've actually had to knock on doors, get people out and actually move their cars, so that's delayed us for about 10 minutes. There's one that we couldn't find the owner of, so we had to reverse back out of the street and just go a different route, but then that slows us down again, so absolute nightmare getting down the little streets.
Over the bank holiday weekend, 476 people were fined for bad parking. To put that in context, there were 32 for the whole of May last year. You can be fined £1,000 and get 3 points on your licence for parking dangerously.
So, if there's no yellow line, can you park here? Well, a perhaps lesser known part of the Highway Code, Rule 240 if you're interested, says you can't stop if there is a double white line in the centre. It forces the traffic to cross a line that shouldn't be crossed. Overtaking here isn't allowed. It's considered too dangerous on this road.
These crews say it's only a matter of time before they won't be able to reach a call to save a life. They ask us to park like it's our family that needs their help.
Very, very important indeed. A young man from Liverpool's trying to raise £50,000 for a robotic arm, which he says will give him some much-needed independence.
Adam Kent has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, a muscle wasting condition, which means he has very limited mobility. He's now had the chance to try out this new piece of tech, as Leisha McNally reports.
It's something so many of us take for granted, the pleasure of helping yourself to a drink on a hot day. But for Adam Kent, this is a welcome taste of independence, one he hasn't had in 2 decades.
What an amazing piece of equipment. It made me a bit speechless to be able to just pick that up and put it in my mouth. And it might seem to someone as though that's not for really, but to me it is.
Adam is living with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, a muscle wasting condition that affects his movement. This mechanical arm, called the JCO, can be controlled through his wheelchair, with motors mirroring a human shoulder, elbow, wrist, and gripping fingers. It would allow Adam to carry out a range of daily tasks for himself, from picking things up to opening doors.
Without it, someone has to do everything for me. And that often affects me mentally, because it often makes me feel like a burden, like I'm a burden on my family.
Like, I see his struggles every single day. What 25-year-old man wants his sister, like, constantly having to give him a drink or sit there feeding him? The joy that it brings him and the happiness that I can see in his eyes when he's doing it, it's just like, it's a memory I'm never going to get out of my head.
But today is just a trial session. Permanent access to this technology is still out of reach for Adam. The JCO is not available on the NHS and costs around £50,000 to install and maintain. There are currently only 4 being used across the UK.
We have to recognise that the JCO is very advanced technology and a lot of expertise behind it to ensure that the individual use of the JCO is optimised. And all that costs money. So there's no doubt that the cost is a primary barrier to uptake in the UK. We are talking to some people in the health service, hoping that eventually they will look at the technology, but the NHS is typically quite slow at taking up new technology of this kind, but we're hopeful in the future.
In the meantime, Adam's family have turned to fundraising to try to pay for the Jayco, and eventually hope to set up a foundation to help other people access this life-changing device. But first, Adam has his sights set somewhere a little closer to home. So what's one thing that you really want to do?
I have a massive dream of holding the scarf off above my head after the Liverpool match when the singing "You Never Walk Away." Currently, I feel disconnected. I feel like I'm just watching everyone out.
It's not quite Anfield Stadium, but this trial is a taste of what it could be like to finally live that dream. Leisha McNally, ITV News, Liverpool.
And what a dream. There's more information about Adam's fundraising effort on our website right now, itv.com/Granada, and best of luck to him and all his family.
Absolutely. Just a word now about the latest podcast in our From the North series, which is out today. The new edition looks at cladding and finds out the impact on those living in unsafe apartments.
It's horrendous. Pretty much every night I go to bed and I think when I'm lying there, I just think, okay, where are our shoes? I'll have to grab the pet rabbit. This is something, where are our coats? I have that thought every night, and that's just not normal.
Thankfully, I don't have children. I don't have to think, how on earth would I get my children out of the building should the worst happen? If you're on the 17th floor, you cannot get out of that building.
And you can download that episode and more wherever you get your podcasts from.
Lots still to come on the programme tonight, including...
Good times never seem so good for Irene and Vera, best friends for more than 70 years.
And after a very pleasant day across the northwest today, the weekend is almost upon us. More of your photos and, of course, the forecast and the pollen count a little later on.
Here's what's still to come on the ITV News at 6:30 with Charlie.
The Pfizer vaccine is approved for 12 to 15-year-olds. It means teenagers could get the jab as early as autumn. The boss of Jet2 says their planes may be grounded for longer unless popular holiday destinations are added to the travel green list, as Brits scramble to get home from Portugal before quarantine kicks in. And just what is yarn bombing and why has it become so popular? Well, we'll explain that and have all the day's other stories from 6:30.
Now to a first in our Granada Introducing series, showcasing the Northwest's best music. Loathe from Liverpool are the first metal band we've featured, but one with a bit of a difference, as you'll see.
Yeah, they've been chatting to our correspondent Elaine Wilcox in the city's beautiful Sefton Park, where the first pilot gig took place, giving fans hope they'll be able to enjoy more live music soon.
The accolades just keep coming for Loathe, with this track named the 68th best metal song of the 21st century.
Quite insane, I think. For it to come this early is quite crazy.
And then to get Chino from Deftones praising your song.
Honestly, still doesn't really feel real, like to have someone who you look up to musically and I'd say grown up listening to for them to give you props, like, yeah, it's a feeling I can't even really explain, but it's definitely a dream come true, yeah.
The five-piece say they're a metal band with a fusion of theatrical influences. You've given me a bit of a problem because I usually take a snatch of some of your songs, but there is such a jarring contrast with the smooth melodies and then incandescent rage. What kind of reaction do you get from the audience when you are raging?
The energy in the room, especially for a song like New Faces in the Dark, it's just unmatched. Like, it's literally like there's electricity in the air.
Been times when I've just been lost in the music and I've just like forgot to press a sample and like everyone's still like in the zone.
For Loathe, lockdown has been a blessing and a curse. They were riding high with a new album and a headline tour, performing in China and Japan. But with gigs cancelled, they had a chance to rest and refocus.
we've always wanted Love to be something that's like bigger than just a band, kind of like its own universe in a way, something that you can like live in. And that's even with us, like with the things they believe, just trying new and different things, doing like movie scores or maybe even one day writing our own film.
We chatted in Sefton Park where the first pilot gig was held, and that's given them hope, setting their sights on a transatlantic tour with this message for fans.
Better days will come. Just keep hope and know that we will be reunited very, very soon.
They want to keep creating music that's new and different, and you can't find anywhere else right now.
And you can watch Loathe and all the bands featured so far in that series at itv.com/Granada.
And we will be reunited. It's a good thing to live by, that, isn't it? A good hope.
Just a bit. We like that.
It's been glorious today, but will the good weather continue over the weekend? Here's Kerry.
Now that is brew weather. And only boiling what she needs.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Big up you, sis.
Hello, a very good evening to you. It's been a very pleasant day across most parts of the northwest today. A big thank you for sharing your garden wildlife photos as well this week. Bees have been very popular, and I think one of the most popular plants for those bees is lavender. A big thank you to Janet Packham for sharing this one. If you want the butterflies, buddleia is a good one apparently, and Karen Watts suggests some berry pellets if you want to encourage more birds. So that's Garden Wildlife Week. It ends on Sunday. Now, this has been the story so far today. We've had a lovely slice of sunshine. The more unsettled conditions have been further south and east across the UK, and we continue with those clear skies as we head through into tonight. Under the clearer skies with light winds, it will be cool once more, and certainly down to around 6 or 7 Celsius possible in rural shelter overnight tonight, just about staying in double figures for towns and cities. This shot was taken first thing this morning of a halo around the sun, a kind of rainbow effect that is created through those icy crystals in the high cirrus cloud. A big thank you to Dave Corkish for sharing. Lovely start tomorrow. Fresh start, but lots of sunshine. A little bit more cloud for the Isle of Man, slightly higher chance of a shower. But for most of us tomorrow, just a bit more in the way of patchy cloud as Saturday progresses, and some really nice warm sunny spells, 22, 23 Celsius possible. We're a 7 on the UV index. We rarely get to 8, so a real risk of sunburn as we head into the weekend. As we head into the second half of the weekend on Sunday, perhaps a little bit more in the way of cloud around, slightly higher chance of a scattered shower, but still with some warm sunny spells. And again on Monday there could be some showers around, but for many of us it will be settled. There'll be some warm sunny spells by day with light winds, but fairly fresh nights, especially away from the towns and cities.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
2 sugars, please. Oh, lovely.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV pollen count.
Well, we've got a few showers in the mix over the next couple of days, dampening down the pollen count a little bit. The grass pollen season hasn't really got going yet, so we're moderate Saturday, Sunday and Monday. Have a lovely, awesome weekend. Take care.
The joys of hay fever, at least it's sunny, eh? Thank you very much indeed, Kerry. Before we go tonight, people often use the phrase lifelong friends, and it certainly applies to Irene Blomley and Vera Scott from Stockport. They've been friends for, get this, 73 years since they were both aged 10.
Irene now lives in a care home and has dementia, but she constantly talks about Vera. When her best friend paid her a visit recently, the old memories came flooding back with a bit of help from Neil Diamond.
Reaching out, touching me, touching you.
Do you know what? I hope that I am still dancing to Neil Diamond into my 70s with my friends, if they'll put up with me for that long. Thank you.
They'll put up with you dancing.
Thank you so much to Steve Brinsley, who's Irene's son and Vera's son-in-law, for sending us that beautiful video.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Here's to a great weekend for you and yours, whatever it is you're doing in the sunshine, from the whole team across the Northwest. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.